Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and it's time for another 2 back or not 2 back. Now, this is being filmed on Friday again, so any updates I'm missing, any new Kickstarters, any of that, please forgive me for it. We'll be back on schedule next week, and it's not a holiday for me. The last 2 days of Passover were Saturday and Sunday, but I also don't have time to film this, late Sunday night and hope that it's all ready and prepped to go and everything else. So, being filmed on Friday, but with that, we're going to go through everything, and we're going to be starting off with Pagan Fate of Roanoke. Now, Pagan Fate of Roanoke is one that I covered briefly. I didn't really cover it last week's 2 back and not 2 back, but I did put a little pinned comment because I played it after I filmed that video, and to be frank, it blew me away. It's a game that, it is a 2-player social deduction game, which one player is going to be a witch, one player is going to be the hunter, and the witch is going to be one of a variety of characters. Let me see if I can find it over here, somewhere here, but the witch is going to be in that card row as one of a variety of characters, one of 9 different characters, and the hunter has to deduce which one the witch is. The witch is going to be trying to activate their character in order to win the game, so it's a bit of a bluffing of how often you put tokens down on your character versus other characters, throw them off. Really well handled, had a lot of fun with it. I will be getting a prototype to cover for their pledge manager. Keep in mind, none of this changes the whole value proposition aspect. I covered that I think 2 weeks ago, and it's still everything I said back then, which is this is an expensive game, which does mean that you're going to have to find your target audience for someone who's willing to pay for that and or debate retail availability. So it's not that this game got, better in terms of the value. It's still expensive for what it is, but I absolutely enjoyed it, and it very much being added to my collection, and I just want to talk about it because I like talking about the things that I like. Moving on from there, we're going to have 3 Kickstarters that are sadly not, 4 Kickstarters that are sadly not funding quite yet. The first of these is going to be Amass Battle for Resources on Planet X. This is one where it's going to be, I don't know a ton about the game just yet, but overall, this is one where you have this alien planet, you have a little native that's going to be wandering around collecting resources. You, as the players, are trying to collect and fight over resources. It has a little bit of hidden programming situation going on that you can see behind these player screens over here, where you're going to choose your actions and assign your people after revealing your player screen. So you might end up having battles or conflicts. You can talk to each other, negotiate. I will go here, I won't go here. If you do there, if you go there, I'll go there. All of that, you could of course lie to each other's faces. That is part of how these game systems work. Overall, it just seems like they didn't get a lot of pre-campaign hype or buzz, or, they had, I think, a few hundred followers. I did cover this in my upcoming Kickstarters, and if I recall correctly, they had a few hundred followers back then. Sadly, the nature of Kickstarter is that you need a lot of pre-campaign buzz, so they do seem to be struggling. I'll be frank, I'm not optimistic with even 22 days to go. The fact that they haven't, hit a hump. Hopefully, I don't know, we'll see. Maybe we'll do for a relaunch, we will see. Moving on from there, we have Vigilante. This one does look more like it's going to fund. With 13 days to go, $5,858, $5,800 out of $7,900. It does look like it's on track to fund. Now, this one, I am curious why this is or isn't a game for you. Meaning, offhand, this game looks great. To me, my own personal bias, this game looks great. It is a superhero game, which I've recently covered with other superhero games, how to a certain extent we are being tapped out or exhausted in the franchise. The big names still take home the big bucks, but most of the superhero games that don't have an established history behind them, Sentinels and Multiverse, anything Marvel, any of those games that don't seem to have an established history, do seem to struggle, even when it's coming at you from Blacklist Games. Blacklist Games, when they had their superhero game, while it did get over $100,000, compared to their usual Kickstarter fare, it did underperform. So I do wonder, in general, the nature of superhero games and all of that. What makes Vigilante interesting to me is, first of all, the art's great. It's a 3 to 5 player superhero themed strategy game. Each player will build a unique team of heroes, but here's the part that I found interesting. Players will either be good, evil, or neutral. It's basically combining a typical card-based superhero game with hidden roles where they have to figure out, okay, fine, I'm good. Maybe there's someone evil, maybe there's someone neutral along the way. Who is who in this conversation? Who is doing what in this game? And you have to play around that. And there's going to be this aspect over here. So let's scroll down over here, some of the card artwork. So we see some card artwork, which is great. We have these heroes, which are ultimately going to be defeating powerful villains. Or sometimes you might be defeating villains in order to specifically accomplish your own goal, or to make it worse for the other players, for the actual hero players, because they might have to fight a harder villain now. You're balancing all of that. The card abilities, you have these heroes, you have these villains, which you're going to be jailing. You have this hero over here, Captain Judgment, who has +1 attack for every 2 villains you've jailed. It does seem to be an interesting system. At the end of the day, card-based games, don't get me wrong, despite the fact that I am interested in what I'm seeing here. For myself, my own collection, I tend to be wary of card-based games because You just have to learn all the cards. You have to know all the cards, and that requires a lot of commitment to basically know a ton of cards in a system. And then, of course, expansions tend to be more cards. That's why most of the card-based games that have survived in my collection are going to be cooperative, where it's not as important that I know more about how well the cards operate than you do. So it's a bit of a balance, but I am interested. I'm intrigued. It's, again, struggling, but it does seem like it will fund at the end of the day. Moving on, we have Planet Fulcrum, the board game. I debated not covering this one because, to be frank, I don't know enough about it to talk about it competently at all. Ultimately, I know this is their second Kickstarter. It's still struggling. They had a relaunch, basically. I don't know how long ago the last one was. Still struggling, unfortunately, but it has this aspect of character creation where you have like this app and you can create your own character, and then you plug them into the game or whatever it is, and you over here you see you create your own character, screenshot, feature characters, Fulcrum creator, whatever, and then from there you have the actual board game as well. I haven't looked into the actual gameplay yet, so I don't know enough to talk about it competently. I figured I'd throw it up there, put it on your radar in case it's something you're interested in, or perhaps I'll figure out more about it in order to cover it at a later date. Moving on, last of the ones that we're not covering, I think, yep, last of the ones that are not covering is going to, not covering, Rise of the Gnomes, and this is going to actually be following a similar trajectory in many ways to Theurgy, which I talked about already. Now, Theurgy is a game that I was initially skeptical of, and I'm still skeptical of the price point, don't get me wrong. I'm still skeptical of the value, whether it will hold its value on the secondary market or not, or whether you'll ultimately lose a bit. But it's one that I did back because I played it and I liked it, and that's usually enough for me to just not care. Once I like and play a game, I'll overpay for it. I'm not too concerned, especially when it's not clear about whether retail distribution, whether it'll be available, all of that. Now, Theurgy is going to share several common denominators with Rise of the Gnomes. First of all, with Theurgy, keep in mind, was a relaunch Kickstarter. The initial one did fail. Rise of the Gnomes, I think it will succeed. 27 days to go, 18,000. It's limping along, but a pure trajectory alone, if they actually are fine with that $29,000 funding goal, then they'll fund. I'm not worried about that. If they really need, you know, 59,000 or whatever it is, which is normal. I don't blame any company. You have to place a funding goal that is achievable, that is sustainable, because of the nature of the algorithm and how people look at projects that aren't funding and say, well, I'm not jumping in on that. It's a delicate balance over there, but overall, Rise of the Gnomes is going to share that first similarity with Theurgy, a game that is struggling along. The price point is going to fall in the same category, roughly $65 for the core game, and roughly $95 for the all-in. Again, similar price point to Theurgy. And then the gameplay is going to be an area control game. Now, where it differs from Theurgy is Rise of the Gnomes does seem to have a cooperative solo and competitive modes, versus Theurgy was just a primarily competitive only. Past that, oh, and one more element that definitely shares is the Hungry Gamer has reviewed and loved both of these games. So I recommend checking out the Hungry Gamer video on the game on Rise of the Gnomes, and specifically because he recommended Theurgy. Theurgy is one that I ended up playing or trying because of his recommendation and loved it. So I am definitely interested in trying Rise of the Gnomes. It's possible I'll be able to get an online gameplay in before the campaign ends. We do have, 27 days to go. So if I get a game in before the campaign ends, obviously I will talk about it as well. But past that, I'm interested. And lastly, I'll say both of them also share another similarity in the sense that both of these games fall into the category of having artwork that is okay, but not great. It does seem to be a bit under in terms of comparing it to, you know, more in terms of comparing it to, I guess, the AAA titles that are released. The artwork components for both of them do seem to be a bit under in that sense. And from there, we're going to move on to all the games that are actually funded. Starting with Prosperity, which is a clever little twist on names. So, Prosperity is going to be a game that is all about blending, selling, and trading loose tea. Now, this is one that has 607 backers, $24,000, well over its funding goal. This is their second Kickstarter. I believe the first Kickstarter was something to do with cats. We'll get up to it shortly in the page. But effectively, this is going to be roughly $24 is going to get you tea. Not a board game. To be very clear, this $24 pledge level is not for a board game. It is for tea only. Do not back this one expecting a board game. You will be disappointed, or perhaps you'll be pleasantly surprised if you like tea enough. From there, we have $29 going to give you the basic blend, which is giving you the retail edition of the game, plus letterpress thank you card on seed paper, and some blended tea samples. I believe they covered in the FAQ, you're not actually getting 3 blended tea samples at that level, you're getting 1, I believe. At the signature blend, you're going to be getting $39, which is going to give you the base game, as well as some more tea over here. This is a weird hybrid of a food product and a board game. And then I think the next level. Next level is $85, which is the Luminary blend, which is where you start getting one of these, a Luminary Edition wooden box. So you're going to get the wooden box of the game at that level. And over here you can see the actual levels as well. We have in the box, the cards, all that, the reward tiers, the basic blend for $29, the signature blend, the Luminary blend with its custom wooden box, and then the bespoke blend where you are getting basically absolutely everything you can possibly get for this game. And then over there, and then we have the special tea over here where you just get tea. And so overall, they have a few how to play videos in terms of covering the game. Seems like a lighter game overall, you know, what's it called, Before You Play covered it as well, so feel free to check out that. And that is basically over here, Prosperity. Now they do have, let me try to find over here, here we go, we have Cantankerous Cats was their previous game. They do have some exclusive content for the game over here. So in terms of, this falls into the category of, it's a small enough game, small enough print run, that it might not be the worst in terms of getting your hands on it, plus the optional buys. If you wanted to get your hands on Cantankerous Cats, it costs you more now after the Kickstarter than it did during the Kickstarter. But in terms of getting your money back, I don't think you'll get your money back. While this might be the best price for you to get your hands on it, just because of the lower print runs and availability, it's one that I doubt you get your money back. This is standard and common for all lower, cheaper card games, or where there's just the shipping and the size, they just don't leave lots of room for any conversation, really. So it's one that might be your best opportunity to get it, but likely would not hold its value. Moving on from there, we have Robinson Crusoe Collector's Edition with a whole bunch of updates. So, Robinson Crusoe Collector's Edition is going to have the following. So this is going to be, first of all, where we are on funding goals. We are at £1 million raised, £1 million euros raised. I should get those right. €1 million raised out of a €50,000 stretch goal, 9,000 backers, 10 days left to go, which is absolutely blowing it out of the water. I mean, again, it's not really a surprise. This is Robinson Crusoe. But they have continuously added to the game, and they have also adjusted and accommodated to backers' requests. Now, I don't know how much of this was planned and how much of it is happening after the fact, but things backers asked for, things backers wanted, there's definitely happening in both stretch goals and or optional buys. And so let's go ahead and go through that. To begin with, let me see if I may have to refresh this page actually, because one of the updates, the most recent update, happened between me loading this page and me filming this video. And that's going to be the most recent update. Let's go ahead to FAQ, to updates. The update is going to be the epic add-on we asked for. Effectively, you know that app with the hundreds of cards that people wanted in the physical form of the cards? Well, they said, fine, you want them, we'll go ahead and provide them. It's going to be an optional buy, available, I believe it was going to be, let me see if we can click on this, I believe it was €30 for all 3 sets, or alternatively, for a single set, it's going to be €15, which basically means, I think that's a no-brainer. I wonder how many people are getting a single set. I think it's a no-brainer that once you're getting one set, you may as well get all 3. It's a better buy over there. But that's going to give you physical copies of all those hundreds of cards that people wanted to basically add to the set. People like myself who, despite the fact that I'm getting this game not even knowing if it's for me yet, I probably will get those cards, because if I do want the game, I'd much rather have the physical cards than the app, to the point that when I did my full video on this Kickstarter, I effectively skipped the app altogether, which I shouldn't have, but I didn't talk about it at all because I just lost interest when I saw the app. I saw an app and I scrolled past it, which I should still cover it because, well, that makes sense, but ultimately I didn't, which I apologize for. But now we have cards instead, so that works out well. That's going to be the optional buy over there. Past that, we're going to have, let's go through what we have over here in terms of, actually, let's go through here, but this is a perfect place to cover it. I want to go through all the stretch goals and optional buys, not optional buys, the stretch goals that have been released so far. Again, we still have 10 days left to go, which means we still have 5 more of each of both for the core game, for the deluxe box, as well as for the journal, whatever it's called, the Book of Adventures. There we go. So again, we have the initial one over here. We've covered this already. We have a competitive scenario on day 2. We have the dice tower on day 3. We have a horror scenario on day 4. We have the Caves mini expansion on day 5. It's going to be a mini expansion exclusive to the game. Little thing that just adds more gameplay content to your game. We have the Deck of Inventions. This is going to be 55 cards added to the Book of Adventures. The Book of Adventures is going to be 55 cards. It's not like here's 3 extra cards for a stretch goal. This is 55 full cards being added. Day 7 is going to be the Horse Companion and 10 new adventure cards for the Gather action. And Day 8 is going to be the deluxe cover. This is a big one that people wanted. They basically said, why are we paying $30 for a Book of Adventures that should not be a $30 book? It should be either a $5 print and play, a $15 book. Well, what's going on with the price point over here? And they basically said, hey, the one you get in Kickstarter, and this is Kickstarter only, the retail edition will not be like this, but the Kickstarter edition of the Book of Adventures will be hardbound, gold foil embossing, spot UV finish, soft touch foil, hardcover, giving you all of that, and we're going to skip a day, we'll go back to it. We also have deluxe high quality paper, all pages printed on high quality Munkin print cream paper, which I have no idea what that is. Day 9 is going to be 10 supporting items, the figures for lanterns, basket, all these are more miniatures effectively to the box. Day 11 is going to be the Parrot Companion and 10 new adventure cards as well. And that leads us to where we are right now, which is day 12, waiting for more content for the game, waiting for what else is showing up there. I basically stand by everything I said when I put out my initial video. This is a game that you definitely 100% do not need this whatsoever. But they are giving you plenty of value for your game, and I have no doubt whatsoever that this will hold its value. It's, again, top 100 game with tons of new content being added, tons of deluxifications. This will be sought after. People will want this because that is what happens when you have exclusive versions of a well-loved game. So I'm not worried about this one at all, and yeah, it will hold its value just fine. And again, we have, what do we have? We have 10 days left to go on this one. Moving on. We have V-Commandos Deluxe. V-Commandos, which I just put up a dedicated video for this one yesterday. I debated not because, I mean, I'm covering it now, but at the same time, I wanted to go more in depth into many of the facets, specifically because they have 5 different pledge levels over here, and different ones might be right for you in different ways. So I did want to go through it more in detail to cover the game, to cover the pledge levels, should you back at all of that. But if you didn't watch that video, the short notes over here is there's a lot of options on the table. V-Commandos is going to be a stealth-based game that it came out a while ago. It's, you know, well lauded, lots of people love it, and they have a reprint and deluxe edition of the game, as well as extras including miniatures, new expansions, reprints, all that stuff over here. Now the game itself is going to, I'm gonna skip past too much of the actual game. I went into that in the other video. Again, stealth-based system, replicated in Assassin's Creed, Brotherhood of Venice. I'm saying this incorrect. I can never get those names right. I did it yesterday too in the video and I totally forgot. Anyways, this is going to be giving you 5 different pledge levels to get into the game, as well as build your own pledge level, which I absolutely do not recommend. The build your own pledge level is basically full price levels instead of bundle discounts. The bundle discounts are going to be the way to go unless you absolutely just feel it's not worth it whatsoever. But I would not recommend buying them individually, but you do you. Past that, I already have V-Commandos is going to give you 2 pledge levels, the Ghost expansion, which again, I wouldn't really recommend, but it's not necessarily the worst thing. And then the all-in deluxe upgrade, which gives you the miniature packs, both miniature packs, the 3 upgrade packs for the new content, and then the Ghost expansion. And then for over there, and that's going to be, by the way, $37 and $148 respectively. They have VAT-free zones or whatnot, and they also have shipping, so factor that in as well. But past that, we have I don't have V-Commandos, we have newcomers for $140, which is going to be the base game, the miniatures pack, and the Ghost expansion, and then the gameplay all-in, which is going to be $155, giving you the base game, the Ghost expansion, both previous expansions, giving you all gameplay, no miniatures in case you want that. The miniatures for this game are nice. I like them. Don't feel you need them. It's a judgment call. Feel free to buy accordingly. And then lastly, we have the Newcomers Deluxe All-In, which is going to be basically every single thing. That's 6 boxes. That's 1 box for the core game, 3 boxes for expansions, and 2 boxes for miniatures. That's what you're getting over there for $255, which is roughly $300 once you factor in shipping, potentially more depending on, well, what zone you're in. And so what's going on here? What do we have with these options? Ultimately, they're all going to follow a similar pattern except for Ghost. Ghost on its own is basically going to be rough. Once you factor in the price, the discount, and the shipping, it balances out to no discount. You will be getting all these stretch goals in the campaign. They didn't say anything's exclusive though, so I'm not clear on that. The good news, or the reason why it's not necessarily a bad back, is these expansions, the game in general and all the expansions have generally been hard to find in the aftermarket, and so, or even just in retail, which means while you're not getting a discount, it's still not necessarily a bad back, so to speak. At the same time, the other options are all going to be better, because the other options, once you factor in the discount plus the shipping does take a chunk out of the discount, but not up to the point of actually eating up the entire discount. And again, given that limited availability and the fact that these generally have done well in the secondary market, when people trying to hunt down a copy of V-Commandos or an all-in copy of V-Commandos or an all-in copy of V-Commandos with the Kickstarter exclusive, whatever, generally people have paid above what the price points are over here. So overall, none of them are amazing backs, to be very clear. I don't think anything is giving you an amazing back where you can turn around and sell it for whatever. You might get lucky. Find the right buyer at the right time, it might work out. But overall, I think they are pretty decent backs, giving you a better price point than you will find later for the most part, unless, of course, you get lucky and find a cheap copy on the secondary market. But for the most part, going by the secondary market numbers, generally these are going to be good backs for the game. And that is going to be V-Commandos. Here we get up to Boogeyman. Now, Boogeyman is going to be a game where I don't think I'm back in this game. I haven't decided. I don't think I'm back in this one. But I thought this was one of the best videos I've ever seen. One of the best videos I've ever seen, to the point that I'm actually going to go ahead and just play it for you. So enjoy the show. And we're going to pop it on now. Now, tell me that wasn't one of the best videos you've seen in a long time, because it might not be. For me, that was one of the best Kickstarter videos I've seen in a long time, both amazingly well produced, as well as giving you a feel for the game. I was absolutely blown away, and I'm genuinely considering backing this one, even though I would not otherwise. If not for that video, I absolutely would not. And if this game is not the best game ever, I want someone to redo this theme with that exact same premise and just make it the best game ever, in case that's relevant. So, what's going on with this game? Why am I not backing? And by the way, timestamps and below. I probably should have said this before in case you wanted to skip a 3-minute long video. I just enjoy the video that much, I'm sorry. But a solo, cooperative, and competitive survival horror game for 1 to 7 players. Will you be able to survive the night? 860 backers. $87,000, and this adorable little cat miniature as well. Now, the price point on this one is going to be on the higher side. I do not think this is going to fall into the category of a safe back, so to speak, but there is Kickstarter exclusive content, so it will be your best price or option to get your hands on the content, but at the same time, I am skeptical that it will hold its value, even with that Kickstarter exclusive content, because of the price point. So we have over here, first off, we reached 500 backers in the first 48 hours. The Boogeyman will donate his terrifying stretch goal to you, glow-in-the-dark giant box poster, whatever it is over there. The pledge levels over here are going to be, and by this is, like I said, a solo / competitive / cooperative game where you're trying to survive the night. It does seem on the lighter side in terms of the card play, the abilities. It looks fun, but it might be a little long or a little bit, I mean, if it plays in 60 minutes, I think that's fine. I would actually, if it actually is a 60-minute playtime, I could see myself playing this with, you know, for a light, fun, end the night kind of situation. But I just don't know. I don't know what the lightness. If you look at the gameplay, there's, what's it called? Beastie Geeks had some coverage of it. Feel free to check out their channel so you can get a feel for how the game plays. But it's going to be 60 euros for the core box, and then 90 euros, which is $107, for the all-in exclusive. That is a lot of money for a game that looks to be on the lighter side. Now, to be clear, the fact that the game features kids does not mean it's a kid-based game, not in the slightest. But it's also not clear. This is one of those tricky things we saw. We saw this with Candy Wars recently from 4Fun Games. But when you have a game with a different theme, you have to be very clear about who the target audience is, because people will click away in a heartbeat. I think this game may well lose people because it's not 100% clear who is the target audience. Is the target audience the lighter gameplay, the kid-based animation, and therefore it's more family-friendly or lighter gateway gamer focused? Or should you be completely ignoring the kid aspect and focus on the dark, gritty trailer with, like, that looks amazingly fun, avoid the boogeyman, but also avoid the terrifying babysitter, all of that with different story endings, amazing art, pretty good miniatures all around. I am very intrigued by this game, but I'm not sold by the game. Going back to the value aspect, should you back it, should you not? I think it's expensive, and I don't think there's enough demand for you to be making your money back on this one. Are you potentially willing to try it out, see if it's for you, and then sell it for $20 loss when it's not the right one for you? Then by all means, back this one. I think this is it looks interesting. I'm very curious how this one does. I hope it's amazing. I may end up folding and backing it, and if I do, it'll be 100% because of that trailer. Moving on to Lasting Tales. Lasting Tales is going to be by Blacklist Miniatures, and this is one that I did a video for on Friday, I want to say. And it's 4,800 backers, $476,000 raised so far, and this is going to be both a tabletop skirmish game, but more specifically a solo / cooperative tabletop skirmish game, and as well as the miniatures line, Blacklist, the fantasy line 2. Now, Blacklist has had the fantasy line 1, they've had the horror line along with Dire Alliance, and now they have Lasting Tales and Fantasy Series 2. Now, factoring in price points, the original, the best deal by far is still going to be the Fantasy Series 1, where for $65 plus shipping, you got 200 miniatures. And I saw comments on my video from Friday talking about how the miniatures are great. One person, Robin, a regular viewer, said that they sold like 12 of their 200 miniatures for over $200, so it's a pretty good back. So if you're willing to split out and piece out your miniatures and sell them on eBay, then it could be an amazing back in that sense. So myself, I don't know if I'm willing to. It seems like a lot of work, and it's not something I'm good at. Then again, now I know how other people feel when I say, just sell your board games. And people are like, well, it's a lot of work. And I'm like, but I know what to do. So I guess it all comes down to what you're comfortable with, what you've done before, and what you're willing to take on. Now, for board games, which is a huge part of the amount of money I spend on extras in my life, I'm willing to learn or involve myself in that. For miniatures, which I don't have the opportunity to frequently piecemeal, I still don't know if I'm willing to. I may end up backing the Blacklist Series 2, because at $75, not as good as the original pledge, but at $75 for the miniatures so far, of which we have over 160 so far, and 18 days left in the campaign, or maybe it's 17 days left in the campaign, 17 days left to go in the campaign, and we have 160 plus miniatures so far, with more being unlocked. There may even be more unlocked since I did my video last time, so let's scroll down to the bottom over here. And over here we have, nope, nothing else unlocked yet so far, although it looks like it's unlocked, just not 370 versus 470, so unlocked, just not actually updated yet. Let me see if I refresh this. Did I refresh this? I must have refreshed this. So it could just be they're behind on unlocking things. Oh yeah, wow, they are. Did I skip something there? No, yeah, I definitely. Okay, so they have 380,000, 390,000, 400,000, 410, 420, 430, 440, 450, 460, 470, and $480,000 so far. Tons of miniatures, like I said, over 160. I haven't checked the latest count. All for $75 plus shipping, which is almost as good a deal as the Fantasy Series 1. And that will still be fleshed out before the campaign ends. So overall, I think if you're interested in miniatures, this is a no-brainer. You will be able to sell it down the road. This is a no-brainer. I went into more detail in Friday's video if you want to get the full, 15-minute long version of everything. Which brings us to John Company 2nd Edition. John Company 2nd Edition by Whirligig Games. I think it's Whirligig. I think that's how you pronounce it. This is going to be by Cole Whirly and his brother, I believe. And they basically have taken reprints of titles, specifically from who did PAX Premier? Sierra Madre Games. So we have PAX Premier and John Company, both by Sierra Madre Games. And for both of them, they've released a 2nd edition, which means looking at PAX Premier and the reprint there and the secondary market there will be a big factor in determining how this one will play out. Because both of these games on Board Game Geek, the first edition for both of these are a 7.5 in terms of their rating. The first edition for both of these do not have a large percentage of people who own it and or want it and are trading it. It's a small audience of people who actually have access. Both of these games have now become reprints. And if you look at PAX Premier 2nd Edition, PAX Premier is going to be more of a simulating conflict in I think in the Middle East. I'm not entirely sure. I don't remember. I have played this game a few times, and this is going to be a problem with John Company 2. These games are so, I guess, it's so historically based that I can't just say, oh, Dungeons and Dragons and zombies and orcs and all that. There's actually a degree of context here that has me a little bit lacking in my confidence of being able to explain it and explain it correctly or accurately on camera. But effectively, PAX Premier is a solid game that I have had the opportunity to play. Has not stayed in my collection. Actually, never had in my collection. I tried my friend's copy, but ultimately, PAX Premier was a game that is only on Kickstarter. They do not have retail distribution, and this one, which was I believe a $70 Kickstarter, $70 frequently sells for between $90 to $120 on the secondhand market. This is one that easily gets its money back. Combine a reprint of an existing game, a reprint of a well-loved game with Kickstarter limited availability, and that's what we get over here. Now, John Company is doing the exact same thing, although a very different game. This is more of an economic sandbox, taking place in, again, the rise and fall of the East India Company and the cutting negotiation about high society at the dawn of the British Empire. And this is going to be created by Cole Whirly, and this is printed under Whirligig Games this time, only on Kickstarter, at $80 price point, so a little more expensive. That could reflect anything from the increased cost of goods, which we're seeing right now in general. I probably should do a full video on this, but a lot of people, but not everyone, is aware of the fact that we're seeing increases in the cost of materials right now because of all the shortages. We're seeing increases in the cost of shipping. We're seeing shipping delays. Lots of things are basically catching up to the world shutting down for months, and we're seeing a lot of things that will result in increased pricing across the board on both the games and the shipping components in play. So that's something I want to factor in. But that $80 MSRP is going to result in basically, it's going to hold its value. It's a no-brainer there as well, just judging by the solid reprint of an existing game and judging by PAX Premier, the 2nd edition over there. This is one where my recommendation is if you want it, back it on the Kickstarter, because you'll be able to get your money back if it's not for you, and it'll be the cheapest opportunity to get it if it is for you. This is one where I can easily see it going, even initially. Forget down the road. Even initially, well, I shouldn't say other way, I'm saying it poorly. Initially, it will sell for 120 plus easily on the secondhand market. Once time cools, once the people cool their jets and the game has managed to live and breathe for a while, it will still hold its value, but maybe it'll reduce to 100, maybe 110. It'll still be reduced, but it will still hold its value, no problem at all. So if you are interested in John Company, then by all means jump in on this Kickstarter, because this is going to be your best opportunity to get your hands on it. Moving on from there, we have 3 left. We have Magna Roma. Magna Roma is going to be Build the Greatest Roman City. This is going to be by Arcona Games. I have a playthrough and review of this with Rena, and overall, well, let's go through this. So, first of all, this is the Kickstarter version of the game. This is going to be giving you all these buildings over here. In addition to giving you specific gameplay aspects that are Kickstarter exclusive, this is giving you all these deluxe monument stuff that are going to be Kickstarter exclusive. They might be available as an optional buy in the secondhand market or whatnot, but effectively you're getting a Kickstarter version of this game. They're giving you deluxe only, which is something they're breaking from past Kickstarters. They have a bunch of other Kickstarters under the belt, and they've all done okay. Most of the Kickstarters, I would say, have fallen in the category of that aspect of not able to resell it for what you got, but it might be the best opportunity to get it because they do come. So let me give it a good example. I'm explaining myself poorly over here. Although this general is a subject I do cover in general, but let's say looking at, small empires. Small empires is a good example over here. This is one where you can buy the game now, but you could buy the game on Kickstarter for roughly the same price point plus shipping, but you also got the Kickstarter exclusive option. So it balances out in that sense in terms of best opportunity price to get your hands on it yourself. But in terms of selling on the secondhand market, none of their games have had enough of an impact that the secondhand market has done well for their games. That is likely to hold true for Magna Roma as well, although I do think Magna Roma is outperforming their other games. So it's likely that whatever you buy here may end up falling into the category of the cheapest, best opportunity for you to get your hands in it, unless you want to crawl around the secondhand market, but ones that you are unlikely to get your full pledge back, especially considering the price point of what we see here, which we'll go through. But to go through that, so we have for $60. For $60, you have the standard pledge, which is going to give you, let me actually find the pictures. I think that's a better idea over here. So why back now? Let's cover that. You're going to get the Kickstarter exclusive Obelisk Monument for free. That's going to be given exclusive. And then we're going to get the Emperor's Box for free, which is going to give you all the stretch goals of the campaign. That's a traditional thing that Arcona Games does do. In terms of the pledge level, so the standard pledge for $59 is going to give you all the stretch goals, the Magna Roma, the Emperor's Box, the Deluxe Obelisk Monument. For $79, you're going to get all this, including the Deluxe Monument set. So basically, for an extra $20, you're getting all the Deluxe Monuments for the game over there. And for $119, you get basically everything, including 2 optional buy expansions, the coins and anything else, the Portus module, all of that over there for $119. Which $119, to be fair, is a lot of money for a tile-laying game. This is a game, like I said, I already reviewed with my wife. Overall, I felt it was on the lighter side, but I also said, and I didn't know this at the time, I said that I hope the Kickstarter has expansions or modules because while I like the game in its current form and while I've enjoyed it, I want a little bit more variety to mix up the gameplay, to make it feel different every single time, and they do have expansions over here which will basically improve my opinion. I already liked it, I just wasn't sure about the longevity, and I hoped for expansions, and they're delivering expansions. Overall, I like this one. This is a solid game. It's still cool by the fact that without enough of a secondary market, it's unlikely to hold its value in terms of you being able to get your money back, but it also might be the best price you can get for it unless you're willing to wait and see and find a good deal on the secondhand market when one shows up. Now keep in mind, with 639 backers, that was 641, it's already changed in the past 2 minutes, with 641 backers, it's not going to have a huge secondary market availability. If you are interested, I recommend jumping in now, and if not, well, then not. That's going to be Magna Roma. Moving on from Magna Roma, we have Sentinels of the Multiverse Definitive Edition. This is going to be one that I am a little bit confused by, but also not. I'll explain what that means. So we have 3,213 backers for what is effectively the reprint new version of Sentinels of the Multiverse. This makes the 3rd version of Sentinels of the Multiverse. We had the original 1st edition way back, then they came out with the 2nd edition, which was the revised, enhanced version, which to put it all in a box, gave you tokens to track damage. Sentinels of the Multiverse has been around for 10 years now. This is a game that is well loved, has a loyal audience. This is a game that we saw the universe expanded on in Freedom 5 and that Kickstarter from Arcane Wonders, that's the name of the company. And over here, they're bringing you the Definitive Edition, where they are basically redoing the graphic design across the board. It's kind of works with your existing content, but also not. It's going to be mismatched, but work, if that makes sense. They have a guide for how that's going to play out. But this is going to be giving you for $50, and that's the main pledge level over here, plus a pledge level for sleeves. For $50, they're giving you a pledge level that's going to give you the core game plus the foil card pack. Now, this is where I say kind of confused, but not. So they haven't really released a lot of what you get in terms of extras or exclusives, anything like that, which means it sounds like you're basically paying $50 for the core game plus the foil card pack, which $50 for the core game would be a straight up bad back unless they're jumping the price by a decent amount, because you can get this game on, any online retailer for significantly less than $50. The part where I'm not as confused is what tends to happen with Sentinels of the Multiverse is they have a ton of promos for the game. Now, some of these promos end up being like $3 promos, no big deal, but some of the sets that they've had, especially the Kickstarter exclusive ones, have done a decent job at holding their value, especially if they are well sought after. Like I said, this game has been around for 10 years, has a loyal audience, and if people are willing to pay for that foil card pack, then it may hold its value. So it falls into a weird zone where I'm not confident about the value on the table, because the core box alone, not worth it. But when you factor in the fact that we have a foil card pack that ultimately the audience is going to determine just how much it's worth on the secondary market, it may well end up being a good opportunity to get your hands on it, or you can just wait for retail and let it show up there. Now, they have said they will continue to expand the Definitive Edition line with expansions every year, so they're going to be reprinting and potentially doing new expansions in the definitive version of the game. So if you are someone who owns a giant Sentinels with Multiverse collection, if you are someone who 2-3 years ago upgraded to the Oblivion box with absolutely everything, and now it's time to reset, well, I feel your pain. I do. And it can be frustrating. I also don't mind. It's one of those weird, annoying things where if they don't put out a definitive updated edition, then it doesn't bother you. So the fact that it exists suddenly does. It's weird because I understand the bother, don't get me wrong. I would be bothered as well. But it's also not logical to desire a lack. Now, to be fair, to the credit, I've browsed the comment section. I have not seen a ton of hate from people complaining about the new edition. So good on them, I guess. I haven't been following. I haven't gone through all 720 comments, but the last 100 or so I scrolled through did not seem to have an abundance of complaining. For $125, you can get the foil, what's called enough sleeves for the game and foil cards, which basically, you know, $70 for sleeves. This is the part where I usually recommend Sleeve Kings as a sleeve company that I generally use for most of my gaming needs, unless I bought an all-in bundle that includes deluxe sleeves, but I only do that when it's bundled in, not when it's specifically buying an extra bundle for sleeves. Lastly, we have Long Shot the Dice Game. Long Shot the Dice Game is going to be by Perplexed Games. This is going to be, they're the ones who brought you, I said this before, I did this last time. I have to just show you. They brought you Roll and Write. Not Roll and Write, but Roll and Write. I did this last time. It's impossible to say it. You just have to show it. They had Roll and Write the dice game, and this is going to be their new Roll and Write dice game, although this is going to be a re-implementation of Long Shot. This is another one where I have a playthrough and review on the channel with Rena and Shira. Overall, we enjoyed this one, but at the same time, again, solid game. Not like, oh my gosh, it's the best game ever, but we enjoyed it and had fun playing it, and Rena in particular enjoyed it, considering it's a betting game, which she usually does not like. But overall, this is going to be a fast-paced 25-minute race, which is roughly accurate to the time frame. You're going to be rolling dice, betting on horses, cheering, screaming, and you're going to have sets of horses that mix up the gameplay. So you have 4 different, well, that's the part where it gets retail versus Kickstarter. So in the retail edition of the game, there's going to be 2 different sets of horses, giving you a little bit of variety, but not a ton. The Kickstarter version of the game is going to be coming with 4 sets of horses as of now, potentially more to follow, because by default, the Kickstarter version gives you this, where we go over here, 1 horse set number 3 is going to be the Kickstarter exclusive set, and then if you scroll down further, you can see their stretch goals. We have 50k is going to give you horse set 4. Now, I am curious if I refresh the page, if we have a new update. We do not have a new update yet. The reason I say that is because they actually crossed 50k today, so they crossed 50k, which means I'm curious what the next update is, whether it's a 5th set of horses or all of that. Price point wise, let's take a look at the price point. The price point for this Roll and Write game is going to be $25 plus shipping for Long Shot the Dice Game, and if you look at the retail versions in terms of Roll and Write's going to be a good example here. You can buy that at retail for roughly $18, which I think is roughly accurate to what we can expect here as well. Meaning if you want to buy Long Shot the Dice Game for $18 with free shipping from Miniature Market, from Cool Stuff Inc., from wherever, you can certainly do so. That should not be a problem at all. But you will be missing out on the extra horse sets. So the question is, $25 plus shipping, so around $7 or so $32 versus $18. Are you willing to pay basically roughly $6 to $7 for each additional horse set? Now, for myself, I would, by the way, because those really mix up the experience. They give you, basically, if you have 4 horse sets compared to 2 horse sets, considering you can mix and match, you are drastically adding to the variability of your gameplay. You're not just doubling it, you're drastically adding to the variability of what you can experience with this game. So if you are interested in the game, I'd probably go for the Kickstarter version to get Long Shot the Dice Game plus whatever, but factor in, I do not think you'll get your money back on this in the secondary market. While it is going to be the best opportunity to get the full game with those promos, it's not one that I see you being able to get your $25 back. Again, small game, shipping, that's the usual thing over there. And that is the end of this video. That's a wrap. That's going to be all the Kickstarters. Now, I said this last week and I was wrong, but as of right now, I'm not sure if there'll be a 2-back or not 2-back next week. The reason for that is because the biggest thing launching next week is going to be Mythic Battles Ragnarok, which is almost certainly getting its own dedicated video anyways. And past that, I can take a look in the sidebar. Let me see what I have over here. I have a few things coming up next week, but I don't think it's a ton. My current list, and there's going to be something I'm missing here, don't get me wrong. My current list has Hippocrates. We have Explore It. Oh, we have Explore It. We have Imperial Spells and Steam, King's Trial. You know what? We actually do have enough. I think there will be a 2-back or not 2-back next Monday, but we shall see. If not, then there'll be something Kickstarter related, because that's what I do. Until next time, my name is Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, have a good one. See, one of these days I'm just going to let the camera roll for 3 minutes and then just end it without anything. But today's not that day. Today I have something for you. Horrific. You may want to skip this. You may regret staying around, but I'll go for it. So, librarian sitting there, minding her own business. Do we have any book-themed games today that I can punch up in the background? No, not really. Librarian sitting there, minding her own business, and a chicken walks into the library, grabs a book off its shelf, walks up to the, or doesn't grab it, sorry. Chicken walks into the library, walks up to the librarian and says, "Buck, buck." Librarian's unsure exactly what to do, just kind of ignores it. Chicken goes, "Buck, buck," and then wanders over to a pile of books and pokes at them. "Buck, buck." Librarian hands the chicken a book, a little uncertain what's going on here. Chicken walks out, wanders outside the library. Librarian's glad no one saw her handing her a book, because that's a fireable offense right there. 2 minutes later, Chicken wanders back in with the book, puts it down on the counter, wanders over to the pile of books again and says, "Buck, buck." Librarian, still unsure, hands Chicken a book. Chicken walks out. Sure enough, 2 minutes later, back in the library, puts the book down, walks to the pile, grabs the book, walks to the pile, says, "Buck, buck." Librarian hands the chicken a book. You understand what's going on here. This pattern repeats itself 3 or 4 more times. The chicken constantly wandering back into the library, constantly handing the librarian the book while going, "Buck, buck." The 17th time it happens, the librarian's kind of a little unsure what's going on, but follows the chicken outside the library this time. The chicken walks outside the library, looks both ways, crosses the road, wanders down to the stream, where there's a frog in the lily pad. Chicken drops the book right in front of the frog, and the frog says, "Read it, read it."